If you're annoyed by that intro, and you want to leave a bunch of angry comments about how I'm just a piece of shit for annoying you, good! Because that's exactly how I feel about Mai and Street Fighter 6 right now. Yes, I'm making a dedicated video despite being a fucking nuisance about it for the past 2 days, and probably will be ongoing as long as people continue to be fucking hypocrites. I unfortunately have to bend the knee to the second-hand market because dark children like to say that you can't judge a game unless you actually play it, and because Capcom promised the World Tour mode that's a pure single-player experience, and I'm sure as shit not buying any of the fucking DLC. Go on whole stink about that, which I already have, both in video form and on the XCOM, but people will eat that shit up just like with Mai and Street Fighter 6. And before I rip and tear into this game, I need to do a little sponsorship.
I am 287 pounds of folded steel and sex appeal.
Fan service does not equal game quality, alright? It's no secret that lots of people are into that thing, and even Steve Wilkos himself can tell you that if you're a dude and you're not looking at porn, something's seriously wrong with you. When it comes to the video game form, you can't always get away with story in a porno is not important bit, because you're playing a video game, okay? Unless that video game is a visual novel, which I don't think Nintendo, Microsoft, or Sony is going to allow something like Nekopara to be part of their services, except Nintendo already has, and it's the censored version. Oops! It's icing on the cake as far as I'm concerned. Why? Because whether it be something like Dead or Alive, which is notorious for its fan service, but usually the game quality, the story that it has, it isn't just consuming an Ayande jiggling tits in your face for 20 minutes, actually has something of value, which even people like Punish here could not understand, and probably gonna get some dipshits misinterpreting this. It actually has gameplay, easy to pick up and play controls that anyone can get into, and even with Dead or Alive 5 having the most characters, which ironically enough, Mai is part of that roster, but we're gonna get into that a little bit as well. It's a game that can be played by anyone, but when you want to take the time and learn it, you feel a much more greater appreciation for the game that can be both enjoyed by newbies and masters alike. Not including my self-proclaimed game master status. Don't take it too seriously, but I can be good at games if I want to. Okay. Even with games like Senran Kagura, not every game is like S-Level Versus, which in my opinion is probably the one game that's worth playing. Because a lot of them, while admirable that they do try different genres, a lot of them either have not enough content or they don't have a roster that's worth playing. Just being real. Akiba's Trip, Undead, and Undressed is still one of my favorite games being played recently. And while I can argue that both Undead and Undressed and the original's combat isn't the greatest, Undead and Undressed is more tolerable than the original. Even if both have their rich, filled replay value, characters that are actually likable, and even going beyond the trope of stripping people in Akihabara, if I've been saying that correctly, I'm sure someone's going to mad at me for that too. Undead and Undressed is way more worth playing, despite the fact that it has some of the issues that were still present in the original game. But trying to play the original game a la Hellbound and Debriefed, I see what they did there. And despite the interior having a fully fleshed out and complete game, something that games used to come packaged with, but it seems to be part of a lost relic nowadays, the game's controls are shit, the combat is shit, which are important in a video game and does not carry the weight of mommy milkers like the Master and Mido. So I don't want to hear that I'm just being a gooner and that I'm not appreciative of what they give to me on a silver platter. And even as subjective as me not liking Bayonetta, I can still argue that there's a lot going for it, it's just not for me. Even if I may come off saying that I don't like Bayonetta, it's not the same as me saying that Mai and Street Fighter 6 just ruins the already existing game, and even adding her doesn't save shit. So if you're gonna get mad at me, be mad at me for the right reasons. Alright? Now. It's no reason that she's the most popular SNK character of all time, and if you tell me otherwise, you're fucking lying. There is no other SNK character that comes remotely close to being popular as Mai, and don't tell me it's just because of her actual character and backstory and shit. Come on. We all know why she's so fucking popular, okay? Nobody even paid attention to those fucking details anymore. Even Chun-Li is in the same boat, and even that one story in Street Fighter 3 Third Strike about her saving some kid or some shit. People don't even care about that shit, because people do not play arcade mode. People do not like to play against the computer. No. All they like to do is either play in tournaments or play in online, and to reach an arbitrary level like their fucking Pokemon. It's not even the first time that she's appeared in other Capcom works. Most notably, Capcom vs. SNK. And its much better sequel, Capcom vs. SNK 2. Especially when the first game had that whole Mai dressed up as Chun-Li shit, the artwork of Mai and Chun-Li squeezing their breasts together, which they poorly reference in Street Fighter 6, by the way, but you know, it's gonna save Capcom, guys, even though, what the fuck are they doing with Monster Hunter? But we'll defend Elden Ring for the exact same fucking reasons, and no, I'm not kidding. The main difference between Mai and Street Fighter 6 in Capcom vs. SNK 2 specifically, while it may not be as big and meaty compared to that of Alpha 3, is at least more meaty compared to Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And what does Street Fighter 6 have to offer? An arcade mode and World Tour mode and whatever bullshit local multiplayer exclusive battle mode that people are not going to even use after one match because it's barely utilized anywhere else. It's like what Soul Calibur 6 did, but not as patronizing, but I'll digress. I have no idea why people think that Mai in Street Fighter 6 is going to make a big difference when it's still Street Fighter 6, the same game that literally recreated the V-trigger argument bullshit. And yes, I know that people have to adapt to new mechanics, but even when Capcom wants to do something interesting, that doesn't always mean it's executed the most well. Even Street Fighter 4 had the Ultra Gauge, which could be already seen as controversial, especially if how it was implemented. And I'm pretty sure that Camel's back was broken when Elena came into the picture with Ultra Street Fighter 4, with her healing ability, which could be seen as massively overpowered. And especially how Capcom implemented it, it is a poor system. I am not going to have people argue with me otherwise. It is a poorly made revenge system made just to cater to people. It has nothing to do with my skill issue, your skill issue, his skill issue, their skill issue, or whoever's skill issue. Game mechanics in a fighting game that do not work well should be called out. Even something like Soul Calibur 6's clash system, which, if that's the only thing that the game has bad going for it, and what good it does, it can stay in its custom character creation nonsense. Or just go play the other Soul Calibur game that's actually good. Oops! Oh well. Better ask Namco for that remaster. It's not like the game has much more to offer, which is what these fighting games should strive for. Actually having replay value for those who may not be in the competitive market and get your bang for your buck for people who don't play the game autistically online 24/7 while trying to prove a point. If that's the only thing your game is going for, you kind of failed. And especially looking at something like Blazing Strike. Yeah, if that sounds fucking autistic, you can blame the person who voiced that shit. Street Fighter 6 is just also a massive overcorrection to what Street Fighter 5 did. Kind of like with what Ninja Gaiden 2 was back in the day. And no, I'm not talking about Ninja Gaiden Black. I'm talking about the re-release of Ninja Gaiden 2 that got people kind of pissed off because the original version was kind of low-key unbalanced and shit. And Team Ninja had to do another version. And I clearly remember some people saying that they weren't going to pay money for the correct version of the game. Doesn't that sound fucking familiar? And while I'm on the topic of fan service, actually, I know that Team Ninja is on a winning streak with their glorified Ninja Gaiden 2 Black game or whatever the fuck, but if people want to use that argument to defend Virtua Fighter 5 because it's a game that's been milked since 2005 or 6, whatever the fuck, I don't even care anymore. I better hope that people use that same defense of Virtua Fighter 6 and or Ninja Gaiden 4. Especially due to the fact that the people who worked on these games are not the same company that used to work on your precious games that you grew up with. And that's not me being harsh, it's just a cold reality that people tend to forget. It also sucks that Street Fighter 6 really could have been the game that saved the series, but unfortunately, for every few good things it does, Capcom has to inject their DEI woke, whatever the fuck that shit means, bullshit, having character designs that panda or whatever, and people asking characters who are literally sold as DLC to be brought back. Seriously, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you even like this to begin with? These people are fucking weirdos, I'm sorry, bruv. Even with all these little details that people will praise about Street Fighter 6, including one DOA Momoji, it's still Capcom at the end of the day. And with their World Tour mode that's not part of the main game, even though you have to play it to get the costumes they're going to use in the main game, that kind of sounds like it's kind of important to actually play the mode, unless you had to spend more money than it costs to buy the game to get costumes that don't mean shit. Remember the whole Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles collab that Street Fighter had going on? I guess that's okay now because Mai's in the game. Why are people so swoon over fucking fan service? Like, legit. Why do you think that just because there's ass and tits in your face that gaming is saved? There's still a lot to like in Bayonetta, even if the combat may not be for everyone, and there's probably valid reasons to not like the game besides the meme of playing as a woman who isn't afraid to show off her body. Even with the subjective arguments aside, there's still a complete game in there for everyone and has character designs that people can enjoy while still, shocker, having their cake and eating it too. Why is this a thing that these Capcom drones will not understand? Or anyone, as a matter of fact, including DOA Moboji. And yes, I'm gonna bring them up again. Man, this character sure reeks of DEI wokeness, but Mai's in the game, so it's fine. That's just fucking stupid. By this logic, Dark Souls 3 should be immune to criticism because they did the thing by referencing the thing from the thing, so you can't criticize it. I'm not even gonna get into Dark Souls 3 because that could be a whole intergalactic palooza of rants from yours truly, but you can even argue with that without the sexual shit. But I'm trying to make a point that people will be won over by fan service no matter what, and especially if it involves tits and ass. Which is also incredibly funny because I've mentioned games like Hades having gameplay that I actually enjoy. It's just horrendously done at times, but that game is pointless fan service. People get mad if you criticize that. Then why is Street Fighter 6 immune to the exact same shit? Especially since Capcom didn't even make Mai. Yes, I know Capcom and SNK have their long history, especially when one of the dudes who made Street Fighter 2 went to make Fatal Fury. Capcom still didn't make the game. SNK did. And what's even more funny is that Capcom is legit the only Japanese company who can get away with fan service. Like, legit. Lady D, oh, people lose their fucking minds over it. People who get mad at others for sexualizing characters like Ashley Graham and Resident Evil, including Actman who got pissy over that shit. Oh, look guys, it's Lady D. Step on me. What the fuck? It's no secret Capcom is also known to sexualize a lot of their characters, including from well-liked games, at least used to be well-liked, with Mega Man Legends, Roll Casket, Tronbon. I'm going to open a pill that's going to be hard to swallow. Those characters are canonically underage, and guess who the artist of that shit is? And guess what works has he been involved with? And guess what characters he used to sexualize these said characters? Are we going to pull a cancel culture on this motherfucker, despite creating a game that you yourself have probably sexualized, but get mad at others for doing the exact same shit? I know this taboo talk is probably tiring at this point, but it really makes me annoyed at how people view fan service and how double-sided they are depending on what fucking time of the day it is, and it's just fucking retarded. My whole stance on this ordeal is that if it's a video game, especially something like with a lot of games these days, and not just a fucking shitty visual novel, the gameplay has to hold up. If the game can complement the fan service, great. If the fan service has actual meaning, good. If the fan service is overly used, that's a problem. And it doesn't have to be with just women or just men. It can be metaphorical or whatever fucking coding that there is. People give shit to Retro City Rampage that will clap at Marvel Cinematic Universe for referencing something extremely vague. People defend Ready Player One, but they'll like something that some other indie person has made and mash all together the indie shit. And then the indie shit turns out to not be so good. For every super indie cards, you have something like Bounty Battle. I practically already made my stances clear on the XCOM, but I guess because a lot of people who watch this channel, which probably isn't a lot to be honest, Street Fighter 6 cannot be saved at this point. It could have been saved, but Capcom chose to do their bullshit with not only their character designs, but giving people who want to actually play the game offline without dealing with shitheads online no reason to play the game beyond World Tour mode. And I don't care that if they actually revamped the arcade mode and shit. If there's no reason into playing the arcade mode besides unlocking character titles or whatever, then what's the point of actually playing it? Even vanilla Street Fighter 4 had reason to keep playing the arcade mode. Not only to see the animated openings and endings, which, unironically, Super Street Fighter 4 did away with not only unlocking characters, but also downgrading the character openings by not having them being animated, but being still images with shitty filters that give Sony Vegas a run for its money. Also doesn't even help that when Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition came out, they couldn't even bother having characters like Oni and Goken having their rival speeches. So even Capcom was cutting corners when they were revamping Street Fighter 4 like they always have been with their other games. Yes, Street Fighter 4, or at least Super Street Fighter 4, kind of had a similar unlock system with emblems and titles that you could unlock for your online profile. But even Street Fighter 4 came packaged as a complete bundle, and you really couldn't buy the costumes as DLC. You could at least unlock taunts and character colors much easier compared to Street Fighter 4. And even other fighting games around that time, like I mentioned in other videos, there were other fighting games besides Street Fighter 4. Is it the best out of all of them? No, but if you want a complete experience of that old school classic arcade experience, there you go. Not to mention it had a working versus CPU mode, a spectator mode, and you can set the time limit to infinity, and that's something that not even Street Fighter 5 or Street Fighter 6 has to offer. What the actual fuck? Seriously, you have a graphic for an infinite time limit, but you can't even set it during versus matches. What the fuck is this, Virtua Fighter? Seriously, Elliot. I could also go on about the whole modern and simple controls, but that has nothing to do with that entirely, even though it is also an issue that people will dismiss because you're letting people not being part of my participation rewards trophy club, boys club mentality bullshit. But this is about Mai entirely, alright? And also, just to go on about this, I know this is kind of late into saying this, but I don't hate Mai as a character. I know that people like her and stuff for reasons. I notice she has more of a backstory that people actually care to read about. They just ever look at her ass or whatever. And I notice some people who actually are happy that Capcom has also given her proper respect. But here's the funny thing, actually. This is something else I forgot to mention. All that sexual shit is only in the World Tour mode. Yeah, some person who I guess is going around mentioning this actually makes a pretty good point that all that bullshit is only in the World Tour mode. If that's actually true, that's pretty sad. Either Capcom is intentionally putting the goods in the mode that people aren't going to play because who the fuck plays fighting games single player, bro? And that they're probably going to make her costumes overpriced DLC later on and all that shit. I also would not be surprised if Capcom and SNK's deals expire so that they eventually have to delist her, like when Dead or Alive did that shit. And this is probably going to be the last point that I mentioned, because this is probably the biggest reason why I'm making this. There was a whole time and period where the Samurai Showdown social media account mentioned, "We being horny on main tonight." People got so vehemently pissed off at that account, but yet we're embracing the horny. What changed? Dead or Alive? Fuck that. Get that sticky, icky breast out of my face. Soul Calibur? Oh my god, Ivy is so... You can see all of Ivy's skin, dude. What the fuck? When Street Fighter does it, wow! Capcom redeemed themselves. This is what gamers want. Yeah, you also want to know what gamers want? They actually want a fucking game. Samurai Showdown, Dead or Alive, Soul Calibur, they all have their fair bits of fan service. But they also have games within them. And they can tout their fan service as much as they damn well please. Whether it be men, women, or references to past games. And even other companies and other characters within their games. Even Tekken does that shit. Remember that whole bit in Tekken Tag Tournament 2 where they referenced Ryu and Ken and even Gouken in Tekken Tag Tournament 2? The Combat Lab? The mode that nobody plays because who the fuck plays single-player content fighting games? Or how about that whole we don't play fighting games to come, bro? There was a whole backlash when Shaq saved you a click fighting game community. Yes, I finally remember his fucking name. There was a whole bit where he got pissed off at Lily in Tekken 8 being censored. Everybody went all fucking pissed off at him for essentially calling out Namco for holding back on sexualization. But when Capcom does it, it's perfectly fine. You people are fucking hypocrites, retards, and honestly piece of shit for not only going against the very thing that you get off to, but get mad when other people call out others for not fully embracing the sexiness. It genuinely pisses me off when people use that Coney image, which isn't even valid anymore, since even the dude himself has literally embraced mine now, so if you still use that shit unironically, you're just fucking demented. And, these people will look at anything fan service related and cry, but when Capcom does it, it's suddenly forgiven, and that they've done no wrong. People will defend Street Fighter and Capcom in general, as if they're the perfect fighting game. Even if they make some of the shittiest games as of late, ruining the games that you used to like, but when they throw a sack of tits in your face, it's suddenly a 10 out of 10. And look, if you really have to embrace the horny on main, just don't be a fucking creep about it. Don't bother other people who don't want to see that shit. Even people like Emery Reigns, who might be a chill dude, I think he has a perfectly fair reason to not see your favorite fetishes on the Edgy Bird app. Not everyone wants to see that shit. That doesn't mean they're kink shaming, it's just that not everyone's going to be interested in what you're in, which I think is perfectly fair. And it would also be true that if I were to start talking about my sexual shit, because who the fuck wants to hear that? Nobody. There's a time and a place for that. And I don't think using YouTube or social media websites like XCOM is certainly a place where everyone can see your fucking dirty laundry. There's plenty of other websites if you want to share your romantic experiences with Lady D from Resident Evil 8. It's not kink shaming, it's just reality. But it's also reality that Capcom just can't make games anymore. And I guarantee that if they were to make another game with fan service in it, people are just gonna eat it up. Or that if Capcom does make a game without fan service, people complain. But you just got Mai and Street Fighter 6 that Capcom clearly created. Oh, and before anyone says otherwise, if you get mad at Ashley Graham, you should be mad at the underage-looking Capcom character that they made in this game. But yeah, I don't have anything else to say about this crap. Mai could have been perfectly fine in Street Fighter considering SNK's history. This doesn't change anything regarding Street Fighter 6. And if you think otherwise, and or that you fall for their bullshit with their fan service,
You are all scum.